Welcome to another edition of Uptown Radio. It's Thursday, May 15th. I'm your host, Hannah Weaver. Today on the show, the recent delay at Newark International Airport and the shortage of air traffic controllers.
That's not how the system is supposed to work, and you can imagine the amount of stress they're under.
And how have the Trump administration's policies impacted university endowment funds?
I don't think the average person knows that there's a connection made between the endowment funds and necessary medical and scientific research, too.
Also, athletes in New York are preparing for the Serbian World Championship of Chess Boxing. It's a sport combining, yes, chess and boxing.
I am going to be the chess boxing world champion. What the heck does that mean?
And a monthly drag show brings lesbian performers into the spotlight. All that and more coming up, but first, the news.
Customized treatment using the revolutionary gene editing technique known as CRISPR to treat a baby with a rare life-threatening genetic disorder. We're going to hear all about that and much more. Stay with us. News headlines are next.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Supreme Court is now weighing arguments related to lawsuits challenging President Trump's attempt to reinterpret the 14th Amendment, which allows birthright citizenship. But at the center of this case is a broader question over whether a judge can universally block a president's policy. NPR's Jimena Bustillo has more.
The administration argued before the justices that individual judges should not be able to universally block the president's ability to revoke birthright citizenship. President Trump has long maintained that the Constitution does not guarantee birthright citizenship. So on day one of his presidential term, he issued an executive order barring automatic citizenship for any baby born in the U.S. whose parents entered the country illegally or who are here legally but on temporary visas. But lawyers representing 22 states and immigrants argued that even if in some instances universal injunctions are cumbersome, in this case it is necessary since citizenship benefits are universally applied. A decision in the case is expected later this summer. Jimena Bustillo, NPR News, Washington.
The Department of Homeland Security is asking for 20,000 National Guard members to help with immigration enforcement. That's according to a U.S. official who was not authorized to speak publicly on the matter. If the Defense Department approves this DHS request, it would be a first. NPR's Tom Bowman explains.
There's no sense at this point what role the Guard troops would play. It might be providing transportation or security, or if they would be detaining migrants or actually maybe taking part in arrests. Back in February, Texas Governor Greg Abbott gave Texas Guard members the authority to make immigration arrests. Now, this would be the first time Guard troops at the national level, a widespread effort, have been asked to assist in deportations.
NPR's Tom Bowman. The story was first reported by the New York Times. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has met with his Syrian counterpart as the Trump administration begins to wind down sanctions. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports that the move is getting bipartisan support in Washington.
Speaking to reporters on a trip to neighboring Turkey, Secretary Rubio says he's just getting to know Syria's new leaders who toppled Bashar al-Assad's regime last year.
We think that a peaceful, stable Syria would be one of the most dramatic improvements in the region in a very long time. And we want to do everything we can to help achieve that.
Rubio says Syrian authorities, who are former jihadi fighters, are promising to build a pluralistic society. They've also asked for help, he says, in removing chemical weapons from the country. The secretary says the U.S. will help with that and will ease sanctions that were put in place during Bashar al-Assad's rule. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
The Dow is up 271 points. This is NPR News.
And you're listening on WNYC.
At Newark International Airport in the past couple of weeks, things have been hectic, more than normal. So I turned to Clint Henderson. He's the managing editor of The Points Guy, an online travel publication. He told me about some of the safety issues involved, and I asked him, what's been causing this mess?
So essentially, you've seen cancellation and delays day after day after day after day. The real culprit here for these really nonstop delays and cancellations is a shortage of air traffic controllers. Now, this is not a problem just in Newark. This is a problem In the Northeast in particular, but all across the country, actually, there's a dramatic shortage of air traffic controllers. It's a job that's very stressful. You have to have a lot of training for it. It's a challenging job, but we just haven't kept up with hiring. A lot of air traffic controller veterans retired during the pandemic, and then there just hasn't been enough new classes and new employees to keep up. And now you're starting to see it lead to catastrophic failures. So that's really the situation we're in at Newark right now.
Yeah, so what led to this tipping point where now it is catastrophic, like you're saying?
So in other words, the air traffic controllers in the Philadelphia area are now handling all the Newark traffic. And then what's happened recently is because there's been technology failures, the information for the New York air traffic control area has to be piped down to the Philadelphia area, and some of those communications lines have gone down. That has led to controllers who are already stressed to lose contact with planes. Well, you can imagine if you're responsible for hundreds of lives, what that must be like to lose communication with your aircraft. And so what you've had is you've had a stream of air traffic controllers take leaves, but you've got essentially 25 air traffic control workers out right now on medical leave. And so that has made what was already a shortage even worse.
So right now there are only 2 or 3 air traffic controllers at Newark, around that number?
Not for every shift. So
Okay.
you're supposed to have anywhere between 13 and 14, according to the reporting that I've seen. Some hours of the day, they're seeing 2 or 3 workers sometimes when they're particularly short staffed. So that's not a great situation for the ATC workers.
How does this then impact travelers? What do those passengers do?
Work with your airline to see if they'll reroute you just to avoid the delays and cancellations. They have reduced the number of flights. United cut 35 flights a day, for example. I don't think there's a solution anytime soon for the air traffic controller shortage in particular. For right now, if you are flying in and out of Newark, just have a backup plan, pack your patience, try rebooking your flight. If you can't, just remember that you may be dealing with a delay.
So it seems like time is going to be the key factor here, just waiting it out, and reducing flights helps it become a little more safe. Is there anything else that can be done to make the problem a little bit better?
So I think the first thing that they're talking about doing is raising the retirement age, because air traffic controllers have to retire fairly early. If you extend the retirement age, that will keep more veterans in the jobs, which will be good, especially as they try to rebuild the ranks. They're increasing sign-up bonuses and things like that to try to get more people to take these jobs. And I think there's talk about sort of speeding up the timeline of the classes they take and the training they get to try to, but to be honest, they've been talking about this for years now. So I haven't seen a lot of impact so far.
So we fix the air traffic control problem, it'll trickle down all the way to the consumer?
It really will. I think it will really help. The more flights, the more seats are available, the cheaper prices get conceivably, though I have not seen a big impact on prices from this current crisis. But yeah, long term, you want to have these airports to be able to handle maximum number of flights because there's so much demand for air travel.
It's very complex, a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, no, the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, says that this could spread all over the country. There is a shortage all over the country. So I hope he's wrong. I hope this is isolated to Newark, but I'm not holding my breath for the summer.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Clint Henderson, for being with us today.
Anytime. Nice to see you.
It's graduation season, and students across the country are donning their caps and gowns. But the job market is tight. There's not a lot of openings, and fewer employers are hiring. Una Milliken went to Yankee Stadium today, where New York University's graduation is being held. She asked, "How are you feeling about graduating right now?"
George Roja is riding the 4 train to Yankee Stadium. He's an NYU senior, and he's with a group of his friends on their way to graduation. The train is packed with students like Roja in purple robes, NYU's school color. Roja has a teaching job in the Bronx while looking for paralegal work in Midtown. He says the job search is challenging.
Everyone's applying to the same jobs. If you go to LinkedIn, you could see like the job applications themselves and the number of applications that go into each job. And like some jobs I'm applying to, there's like 1,000 applicants already, and it's just like you won't even get an interview. You won't even hear back.
Roja's friend Shabnan Mohammed is a biology major. She's taking a gap year before applying to medical school, but wants to get a job in the meantime to boost her resume. Despite her medical school goals, she says she can't find work in the healthcare sector.
I get interviews, but no callbacks.
Another one of their friends does have a job lined up from a previous internship. But the rest of the group, like Roja and his friend Isaiah Blamur, says they've applied to hundreds without luck.
Probably 300 jobs.
300?
Yeah, I've applied to it. Yeah, around that.
Unemployment is low right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that employers are hiring. Artem Gulish is a senior federal policy advisor at the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. He says it's a tough job market.
So overall, it is a tough job market. Businesses are not sure what's going to happen, less likely to hire, especially recent graduates.
Gulish says he graduated during the Great Recession of 2008. He says this job market isn't nearly as bad. Gulish points to data that shows that college graduates generally land on their feet over time. He says graduates shouldn't get too discouraged.
Have a game plan for what you're going to do while you are searching for the job, and don't get discouraged.
Back around Yankee Stadium, graduates and their families are streaming off the train. It's not even 11 in the morning, and there's already a pre-ceremony party happening at the nearby bar. Music is bumping. 2 NYU Stern students are enjoying themselves at the bar. They're not worried. Matthew Gerzib will be a junior investment banker, and his friend, Lars Jana Schleep, is about to start as an analyst at the private equity firm Blackstone.
I have a job starting in July, so I'm less nervous than people that might be affected by the tariffs. So, what about you?
I'm in the same boat, so not very nervous.
Nearby, MBA students Emily Duff and Abby Lynn are holding mini bottles of champagne. The two are in the tech-focused track of their masters. Tech is going through a bit of a rough patch right now. They both say it's a slower hiring year than usual.
But I think generally, I think we just realized that it would take a little bit more time than a usual year. I think if you were to ask maybe 5 years ago an MBA coming out, jobs would be flying left and right.
Duff says they don't know what the future will hold.
I should be nervous. I'm about to graduate unemployed, but I'm feeling confident. I'm still interviewing. We got this. NYU is a great school. We'll be fine.
Despite all the uncertainty, the students here today are certain about one thing. They'll be fine. Una Milliken, Columbia Radio News.
University endowments have come under political fire lately under the Trump administration. These funds help universities pay for scholarships, research, even campus maintenance. But how they work is often misunderstood. Our reporter, Caroline McCarthy, provides this explainer.
I got an email from my dad a few months ago. He was frustrated with my little sister's college after she was unable to register for her fall semester classes due to a clerical error. I asked him to read it to me.
I called the office today. Everyone is MIA. In an unrelated story, the university received $210 million this year in federal funding, has a $2.7 billion endowment, and is among the top 20 expensive schools for tuition. And still no one can speak to a parent, except a poor sophomore who gets phone duty. These are the things that make people nuts. Love, Dad.
Why this was my problem, I don't know. But it did come right after President Trump canceled $400 million in federal grants to Columbia University, where I'm currently getting my master's degree. And, by the way, my dad isn't just a disgruntled parent. He's a lawyer and a business law professor at Felician University in New Jersey. It made me wonder, if he doesn't understand endowment spending, do other parents? I did some digging, and I found out the answer is often not really. I wanted to find the disconnect, but first I had to figure out what exactly they didn't understand. So I had a more in-depth conversation with my dad.
Let me put some context around this email. This was a consumer who was getting a little bit less customer support than you may have expected. Universities, in my eye, are businesses. They have a product that they charge for. They employ people to provide the service, and they compete for market share. But at the same time, they also have a mission for education. You and I, Caroline, are both Jesuit-educated people, and the mission of education and service to others is primary.
I'm going to break in here, because he was upset. But so are a lot of people who are paying tuition right now.
So, when I wrote this email, what I was thinking about was, first off, how to get my daughter some attention to get her classes for senior year. And second, that I was having trouble getting anyone's attention. And that just drove me nuts.
And there are so many other people who feel like this. But there's a disconnect. Many believe universities can rely on their endowment fund or other revenue sources, even with zero federal funding. I found a lot of these comments on Yahoo News and articles on Fox.
We should not fund Ivy League colleges. Those scientists that want to do research should go to companies outside of academia and get real jobs to do research.
They received a lot of funds from other sources and were able to do it all before taxpayer money. So they will
Taxpayers' money should not be used to support universities where they indoctrinate students.
So we keep bumping into this misconception that when federal funding is removed, universities can sustain themselves through their endowments. But these funds aren't just in piggy banks that universities can spend as they see fit. I asked Catherine Meyer, a fellow at the Brown Center on Education Policy at the Brookings Institute, to explain, what is an endowment?
So an endowment is, in the simplest of terms, a very dedicated savings account that a university has, where there's a lot of money in it, but a lot of it is earmarked for specific programs, whether that's a professorship, specific staffing needs, or a large amount of it is really dedicated towards specific financial aid and scholarship programs.
Like the Tribal Scholars Program for students studying agriculture, or Teach Grants for aspiring teachers who agree to work in high-need areas. Meyer says universities typically only want to use between 5 to 10% of their endowment each year. They want to leave the majority to accumulate growth. But in times of financial hardship, like the Great Depression or the COVID pandemic, they might use more and plan to raise money to replenish it the following year.
Again, some of that for the very specific purposes that it's been set to, and then a little bit amount of the endowment for just general operating needs for any sort of additional scholarship amounts.
But with the administration slashing billions of dollars in academic funding, shouldn't this qualify as one of those times where universities can spend the money how they want? I asked Roger Lewis Giger, Distinguished Professor of Education at Penn State University. A big question I've been having in this is, if I were to give a gift to the school, I give $800,000 to put into the endowment fund as a journalism scholarship, but you have to be a journalist from my hometown. But say they used my donation and the interest that donation accrues for something else. They use it for an athletic scholarship instead. What is it illegal?
It would be illegal because you would have signed a document and the university would have accepted this document that this money was going to be used for certain purposes. And if you then found out that it was being used for other purposes, you could ask for your $800,000 back.
But would that be the extent of the ramifications of that, if there's no other consequence?
They don't go to jail or anything. It can get very, very complicated. This has happened on a number of occasions.
Like in the 80s, when a family agreed to provide hundreds of thousands of dollars to cover tuition for nursing students at the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut. The school later shut down their nursing program and spent the money elsewhere, and the family sued and lost. This year, there's a different lawsuit happening. Colleges and universities are suing the Trump administration to restore federal funding so that they won't have to tap into their endowments. Caroline McCarthy, Columbia Radio News.
Of consumers to buy their products. That's why companies sometimes take political stances as a way to curry consumer favor. But as Madeline Riley reports, with the increased polarization of viewpoints, it's become hard to know if corporate activism helps or hurts sales.
In 2023, during March Madness, Bud Light did something that seemed pretty straightforward for a beer company looking to boost its image. It sent a case of beer to a TikTok influencer with a special set of cans with her face printed on the side. There was just one thing. The influencer, Dylan Mulvaney, was transgender.
This month I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it.
But not everyone was a fan of Bud Light's move, including the musician Kid Rock. He was quite critical about the move. And you're about to hear he even shot a case of beer on social media.
Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch. Have a terrific day.
And conservative consumers came out on TikTok claiming Budweiser as an alternative brand to Bud Light's woke affiliations, not noting, of course, that both brands are owned by the same company. The backlash went viral.
Bud Light is trying to regain its spot as America's top-selling beer after sales dropped 23% last month compared to the same period last year. Analysts blame the plunge on a Bud Light ad posted on social media by a transgender TikToker.
As Bud Light can, and that led to this. People steamrolling cases of beer, people dumping them out in their trash cans, shooting at them even after this moment from Mulvaney. And when the company didn't defend Mulvaney, you then had LGBTQ plus advocates who started boycotting Bud too.
So why were consumers so upset? Social and political issues aside, our values shape our relationship with brands and companies. And some saw Bud Light's actions as activism they didn't agree with. Columbia University business professor Lori Yu has been conducting research on this very thing for the past few years. She says one big concern that consumers have is when businesses are inconsistent with their messaging, which is what she says happened with Anheuser-Busch.
So, for example, in the Bud Light controversy in 2023, I think the audience are generally know about the company's social media campaign featuring transgender influencer.
But Yu says the company flip-flopped after appearing to support her. Anheuser's CEO seemed to back away.
For a company to hire a trans person and then not publicly stand by them is worse, in my opinion, than not hiring a trans person at all. What transpired from that video was more bullying and transphobia than I could have ever imagined.
Things ended with the CEO saying that companies didn't intend to be part of the controversy.
So this, I think, will really create confusion for both, the consumer on the left and consumer on the right, and saying what is the message the company is sending out to the consumers. I think that is a big part that the company, when they're taking side, they should really need to understand, what.
When it comes to activism, some brands just want to look good for the marketing, but others can be intentional, which can be important now, especially as increasingly consumers are spending more on brands that represent the values they align with. Here is Yu's research partner, Ashiva Mindfee.
And very much, we definitely see boycotts and boycotts. Like, who am I actually going to support? Who am I actually going to punish?
Take Ben & Jerry's, which is known for putting their money where their mouth is. The company shares progressive and inclusive values, including in their mission statement to advance human rights and economic justice. And ice cream flavors like Save Our Swirl Now, a non-dairy climate justice ice cream. Yesterday, one of the company's founders, Ben Cohen, was arrested for disturbing a Senate hearing where Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was speaking. But while some consumers may applaud those actions and buy more ice cream because of it, being outspoken can also backfire. Mindfee says consumers are also withholding cash. Recently, Target, which had a whole line of clothing made up for Pride Month, has rolled back its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Companies aren't always sure about the best or even if they should engage. Mindfee says in the past, some companies would advertise how sustainable they were being by sharing their fossil fuel use. But he says today, many have stepped back from publishing that data. But what happens when companies take activism to the next level? Case in point, Tesla, whose CEO Elon Musk has gotten heavily involved in politics. It turns out, even if you align yourself with the country's most powerful politician, it can still backfire with consumers. Tesla shares have dropped sharply, car owners have sold them at a loss, and crowds of protesters have spoken out against the company, like earlier this year in downtown Manhattan.
Boycott Tesla! Boycott Tesla! Boycott Tesla! Boycott Tesla!
For now, Mindfee and Yu say the relationships between consumers and companies will remain value-oriented. meaning not just about how much the product is worth, but also what it represents. Madeline Riley, Columbia Radio News.
Next up, Dana Binfet recalls the family folklore surrounding a tree in her neighborhood.
I grew up on a suburban block in Santa Monica. Next to our house, on the patch of grass between the sidewalk and the curb, sat a big Catalina cherry tree. This tree was anything but beautiful. It was gnarled and bumpy with weirdly shaped knots and holes, but it was also strong and towering with soft green leaves. My brother and I spent long hours in the afternoon sun, climbing up and down, our fingers scratching on the rough bark. My family and I called it the gnome tree because my grandma Bonnie would tell us stories about the gnomes that lived in the tree. Whenever she was in town, we'd head for school in the morning and fill our pockets with almonds, carefully leaving them at the base of the tree for the gnomes. After school, we would race home to see what goodies the gnomes left us in exchange. Inevitably, the almonds would be gone, and in their place would be chocolates wrapped in silver and gold foil. Grandma Bonnie explained that she was friends with the gnomes, which is why they only came out when she was in town. She used to spin stories about the gnomes in the tree that just became part of our family folklore. Grandma has always been the kind of person who's in on the joke. She's the first to crack a smile and make you feel seen. She's famous for her banana bread, her impeccable fashion sense, and for her captivating stories, the kind you're never quite sure are true, which only makes them more exciting. We've never lived in the same city, but she's always felt close. When I was 8, my dad got a new job, and we moved away from our street and the gnome tree. I remember the last day there, saying our farewells and hugging the tree for the final time. It was the street where all my firsts happened. My first steps, the driveway where I learned to tie my shoes. So much happened in our front yard next to the gnome tree. And now we were saying goodbye. We moved to Calgary in Western Canada, and my childhood street in LA was suddenly very far away. Then, a couple years later, our old neighbors told my parents that the gnome tree was diseased and had been cut down. I was completely heartbroken. That tree felt like the last tie to the home I grew up in, and like the last proof of childhood magic. I know now that the tree wasn't really magical. The gnomes, the stories, the gifts, it all came from Grandma Bonnie. She created that world, and when she did, it made everything around her feel enchanted. She always has a way of finding joy and whimsy in the small moments, and she makes people feel special everywhere she goes. When I was a kid, I loved that about her.
Dana, just thinking about you.
And even now, on days when I'm having a hard time appreciating the little things, I call my grandma, and somehow she always brings a little magic back.
Be good. I'll talk to you when things aren't quite so busy. Love you. Bye.
You're listening to Uptown Radio. There's more to come. Stay with us. You're listening to Uptown Radio. I'm Hannah Weaver. Up next, a Brooklyn drag show brings lesbian performers into the spotlight. And reporter Flora Warshaw explains the sport of chess boxing. Finally, 2 personal commentaries, finding comfort in cooking, and a family member who provides guidance for life.
I'm Modjaish. The U.S. Supreme Court is deliberating on President Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship. The order seeks to deny citizenship to the children of people who are either in the U.S. illegally or on temporary visas. Governor Murphy of New Jersey said in a press release, "The Constitution and over 100 years of Supreme Court precedent could not be more clear. Children born in the United States are entitled to U.S. citizenship." New York and New Jersey are part of the broad coalition of states defending the constitutional right. You might soon find a little extra cash in your mailbox by October. New York State is sending out checks to help residents cope with inflation. The amount will depend on your income, ranging from $150 to $400, according to the State Department of Tax and Finance. And there is more good news from the economy. New York's private job sector is on the rise. In April alone, the state added 14,400 jobs. That's a 0.2 bump in the job market, according to the fresh figures from the Department of Labor. Negotiations are going off the rails between New Jersey Transit and its rail engineer union. The engineers are demanding a raise, but New Jersey Transit has refused to approve a wage and benefit package, which was already accepted by all the other rail unions in the state as far as 2022. A strike could start as soon as tonight or tomorrow, threatening to disrupt commutes for some of 350,000 people traveling between New Jersey and New York City. New Jersey Transit urged riders to reach their destinations before the end of the day. The New York State Senate Agriculture Committee is working on a bill. It will ban dangerous additives and synthetic dyes linked to cancer, neurological harm, and behavior issues for children. The act is also proposing to require companies to publicly disclose ingredients and safety data. The race for New York City mayor continues, with less than 6 weeks until June 24th primary. A Marist poll released yesterday shows Andrew Cuomo leading with 37% of Democratic primary voters, but Queens Assembly member Zohan Mondani is gaining ground with 18%. Mondani has made headlines by reaching the city $8 million fundraising cap ahead of schedule, primarily through small donation from approximately 18,000 supporters. Good news from the art world. The Metropolitan Museum of Art has received a gift of 6,500 photographs from German-American collector Arthur Walter. This collection contains contemporary works from Africa, Asia, and Europe. Artists like Andreas Gursky, Cindy Sherman, Seydou Keita, and Samuel Fosso. It also includes photographs from the 19th and 20th centuries. A focused exhibition will happen this fall 2025. The Met director Max Holein called the gift as nothing short of extraordinary. And finally, some brighter skies ahead. While the clouds are sticking around for now, the sun is set to make a return on Sunday. Modeish, Columbia Radio News.
When you think of drag, you probably think of gay men transforming themselves into queens with exaggerated makeup and costuming. But drag has always been more expansive than that. And now, lesbians are participating in a monthly show in Brooklyn. I have more on how it's bringing this underrepresented group into the drag spotlight. It's a drizzly Tuesday night in Park Slope in Brooklyn. But inside Ginger's bar, the party is just getting started. In the corner, there's a small stage with rainbow flags draped off the bottom. 2 wind machines are at the ready.
Okay, well, it's Big Killer today. Thank you everybody for being here.
Stepping on stage is a drag queen wearing a yellow flower crown, a white flowy crop top, and rainbow gems for eyeliner.
We can chat later. Okay, so I'm going to start the show. So don't forget, you can throw dollars.
I'm Baby is tonight's host and co-creator of a monthly show called Dyke Drag. It just celebrated its 3-year anniversary. And in many ways, it is your typical drag show. Drag queens showcase extravagant fashion and lip-sync to pop diva anthems. But, unlike most drag shows, these are performed by and for the lesbian community. Also, historically, most lesbians have performed as drag kings, dressed as men. But most of these performers are drag queens. Kayla Mangeras is the other co-creator of Dyke Drag. She says it was time to reimagine the drag show.
We felt like we either had to choose between going to the gay bar and hanging out with the boys to see drag, or going to a lesbian bar, and we were like, but maybe those things could coexist.
Mangeras also says the performers add elements that the audience will connect with.
Like for the first show, I'm Baby had a sign that said sponsored by U-Haul during their number. Another time they performed I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry and they handed out cherry chapsticks. And it's just like little things like that. That's like, if you know, you know.
Dyke Drag helps performers connect with the audience and also with their own identities. Reina Nobuena is one of the performers on Tuesday. In the afternoon before the show, she's at home putting on makeup in front of a mirror, layering foundation and sculpting her nose with contour. She says her drag persona allows her to explore her femininity as a trans woman.
I mean, I've always known I've been trans, but Reina really helped me find the hyper femme in me. And out of drag, I'm not the most femme, but it's Reina has become truly an extension of me.
She's so dedicated to her craft that she even created an elaborate backstory, which explains the black contact lens that she always wears.
I have this lore that I am a witch, and I want to get powers to be the most beautiful. And when I did, I took too much, and I accidentally killed the coven. And so I was damned with this eye.
Tuesday's show is Reina's first time performing at Dyke Drag. It's been on her radar for a while, and she's excited to finally perform in this unique space.
Tonight, for example, like I will be showing probably the most skin I ever have, and it's because of how safe I feel around my community that I know is like Ginger's is such a safe space.
On stage at Ginger's that night, she's wearing a bedazzled papery dress, silver hoop earrings, and a matching silver choker for her lip-sync performance of Vanish Into You by Lady Gaga. Towards the end of the song, a friend off stage hands Reina a cup of water. She splashes it onto herself, and the papery dress disintegrates, revealing a sparkly purple bikini underneath. Dyke Drag is the first and still the only recurring lesbian drag queen event in New York City. But lesbian and cisgender women have long participated in the art form. Dr. Lady J is a lesbian drag queen based in Cincinnati and wrote her PhD dissertation on its history.
For a large part of the tradition's history, it has been performers who are wearing a specific gender of clothing on stage that is usually not what they were assigned at birth.
But there are some who strayed from the norm. In the 60s, Fayette Hauser toured her Janis Joplin-like character around the country. In the 70s, a then cisgender lesbian named Carter Bachman performed in shows as Liza Minnelli.
And then as we move into like where we're at now, you know, like lots of people do drag that has nothing to do with gender. People do drag as like dragons. People do drag as like a trash can.
Keenan Conley came to Ginger's tonight with a friend who she met at a queer art group in Brooklyn. They're skipping their beloved watercolor class to come to Dyke Drag for the first time.
A lot of my close friends are gay men, so I've been to a lot of those bars, and it's not an inclusive place for women, and that's okay, because we have places like this. I feel like this is a lot more of an inclusive environment. Like, I feel like there's very clearly like fledglings, and then people that have been in the game for a while.
One of those performers who has been in the game for a while is a drag queen named Zenobia, otherwise known as the Drag Princess of Brooklyn. Reina Nobuena says sharing the stage with Zenobia tonight also gave her the chance to suggest a duet.
She was like, oh my God, yeah, like easy. Which I think, again, speaks to the community. I'm sure that it's not the first collaboration to happen in Dyke Drag history.
As a surprise number for the end of the show, Zenobia and Reina performed Beyoncé and Solange's choreography from her iconic 2018 Coachella set. Next weekend, the crew will head to Provincetown, Massachusetts to put on a drag brunch. It's in collaboration with a group there who put on an event from 1994 to 2000 that was also called Dyke Drag. Mangera says it's a way for them to connect with their queer elders and the history that made their current show possible. Hannah Weaver, Columbia Radio News. Next, Madeline Riley shares her journey of finding peace through her relationship with food.
Have you ever made something so special that you just want to share it? Have you even, after a long day, after work or school, or anything really, turned on the stove, greased a pan with olive oil, maybe thrown some garlic or some white onions in there, and felt like even though the world is crazy, or something didn't go your way, everything just stopped? My dad had me chopping up vegetables by the time I was 4. Well, I was present at the chopping block, and I didn't like the way my eyes would sting when onions were involved. He taught me how to hold a knife much later. Not too loosely, firm, protect the fingers, and if you want to go fast, put your free hand on the dull side of the knife and seesaw it back and forth. To crack garlic, place it sideways. Use the blunt end of your fist to crack. I learned a lot from my parents. Look twice before crossing the street, not to let how you feel rule your life. Always add pepper. Cooking is the only survival skill you really need. My first year in college, I didn't have cooking as an outlet. I was in a dorm without a kitchen, and I didn't have time for it either. I've never been good under pressure. It always made me feel sick, and when I was sick, the pressure got worse. My lungs felt like fire from walking up just a flight of stairs. Cold air made me dizzy, and I couldn't feel my toes after sitting down for a long time. I thought it was because of how little I was eating. I was picking apart pieces for smaller bites, cutting myself out of enjoying the experience of actually tasting it. I got to the point where I just wasn't eating at all. Like I was bulging out from my skin at the seams. My fingers felt like sausages, and my stomach felt like I had just eaten air. I was overly conscious about what I was eating and how my body felt. Eventually, I got to the point where I would only eat applesauce and those Werther caramel candies that the grandmothers of the world usually had sitting in a glass bowl somewhere. I felt weak. When the pandemic hit, my family was in lockdown with no place to go. We would spray our grocery bags with Lysol and spend nights in the living room watching the world from our television. At night, one of us would cook. My dad, who usually only had time during the holidays, would have me help him with dinner. My mom made bone broth from scratch out of bare bones from one of those supermarket rotisserie chickens. Our world wasn't so bad because we were sharing it. And food became how we got through it all. I started making rice bowls and pasta recipes that had gone viral on the internet. My eating habits had become better, but my health did not. During this time, I was succumbing more to the symptoms of a congenital heart condition. I had found out a previous surgery had failed. The fatigue, the bloated fingers, and the low tolerance for movement were not because I was unhealthy. I was eating better and worked out religiously. Still, I felt awful. And after that realization that it wasn't about me or what I was eating, things became clearer. But that didn't change my anxiety around it. I started to see food as clinical. No salt, no caffeine after 11 a.m., red meat once a month, citrus before bed for inflammation. What went in mattered to me when it came to outcomes. But making food into a restrictive rule was not sustainable. It still took over my life. After college, I moved into the city, and I had to look at things a little differently. I had to survive on my own. No dining halls, no other people to call me for dinner time. This was my home now. I had to take care of myself. I had to learn how to slow down and go with the flow a bit. So I did. Cooking became a ritual again. The buzz of an electric stove, the painting of olive oil on the surface of a pan, the race to get chopped vegetables in as the meat browned, scraping the burnt pieces of the side of the pot away with a spoon. It's slow, it feels natural, a moment to wind down. Now, when I'm in my pathetic little New York City apartment kitchen, I find comfort in making something me and my friends can enjoy, something that makes me feel good. As Anthony Bourdain once said, food may not be the answer to world peace, but it's a start.
That was reporter Madeline Riley. The sport of chess boxing has been around since 2003. You may be thinking, what is chess boxing? Not surprisingly, it combines both in alternate rounds until a player wins by checkmate or a knockout. This year's World Championship will be in Serbia this September. It may seem odd to combine two such different sports, but as reporter Flora Warshaw discovers, chess boxing is just one aspect of a new resurgence of chess.
William Grafe wants to be the best in the world.
I am going to be the chess boxing world champion. What the heck does that me. So chess boxing.
The best in the world at chess boxing. He is currently the New York State chess champion. I'm with Grafe in his apartment in Williamsburg as he prepares for a big chess boxing match tonight. He's running around his small kitchen looking for his mouthguard and preparing his breakfast.
How many protein bars do I eat a day? Maybe 5.
It doesn't sound that extreme when you say it like that.
Yeah, I would say that might be the main way I get grams of protein.
Grafe wasn't always the typical boxing build. In fact, before he picked up chess boxing, he weighed about 130 pounds and would describe himself as a stick. He jokes with me that you don't need to be muscular to play chess. The pieces don't weigh that much.
So I've put on about 25 pounds of muscle, I would say, throughout this journey. I kind of just do things the easiest way for me. And so a lot of that is just putting everything into the blender that I need right after working out. I take all my nutrients that I need in pill form. And otherwise, yeah, I'm trying to be the best that I can be.
Once his breakfast of pills and protein powder has wrapped up, we head down to Gleason's gym in Dumbo for a practice match ahead of the big fight tonight. It's incredibly loud and you can taste the sweat in the air. To the left and right of me, people are hitting black punching bags. This gym has seen numerous boxing champions from all eras, from the likes of Muhammad Ali to Mike Tyson. But now it's welcoming the world of chess boxing and opening up Gleason's to a new audience.
3, 2, 1, shake hands, and then we're going.
Grafe and his opponent are arranging their pieces on a chessboard, set up in the centre of the ring to start the first round. They're wearing full-on boxing headgear and hand wraps, so the maximum amount of rounds there can be are 3 rounds of chess and 2 rounds of boxing. And the third round of chess must be decisive, and everything is 3 minutes at a time. And now the chessboard is being removed and they're boxing. Grafe is landing some jabs to the head and body of his opponent and exploding with several flurries as his opponent comes in. This was an incredibly successful practice match for Grafe. But later on that evening, at the real chess boxing event, Grafe wins with an incredible rook to d8, leading to an inevitable checkmate. Now, to put the popularity of this match into context, this was a sold-out event, with over 200 people attending, paying for their ticket. So what is it about chess boxing that attracts such an audience? I won't lie, when I originally heard of chess boxing, I immediately thought that it was to do with the growing popularity of hypermasculinity in sport, seen with the likes of Elon Musk wanting to fight Mark Zuckerberg and YouTuber Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson.
Fighting out of the blue corner, here is Jake Paul!
But many in the chess boxing community disagree with this assumption, like Heather Brown. She's standing right by the ring watching Grafe fight. She organised today's chess boxing match and also runs the North Brooklyn Chess Club.
I don't necessarily see it as, this hyper-masculine idea of let's make, a nerdy sport sexy, or let's make a nerdy sport masculine. I think it's a very congruent partnership between two of the hardest sports, chess being a very high intellect, difficult game to master, and same with boxing.
As she explains, chess boxing requires a high amount of skill, switching between such an extreme physical and mental activity. But more importantly, chess boxers are not trying to make a nerdy sport masculine. The pandemic saw a boom in chess players, with Chess.com, an online site to play chess, doubling their number of monthly users from roughly 8 million to nearly 17 million between 2020 and 2022. Now it boasts around 20 million users. Even just plain old chess is taking off, and chess boxing is just another way to ignite the chess community.
Some people are cool in high school. I, on the other hand, played chess in high school. But I think times have changed.
I didn't know Will back in high school, but you should know that we're friends, and I'll occasionally watch him stream his chess playing. Chess streaming is another example of chess's growing popularity, and just one of the ways Grafe found his fan base.
Generally, when I tell people I'm a chess YouTuber, I'm a chess streamer, and they're like, what's your rating? And I tell them, this is something that is impressive, even though it's like I play a board game, and so I think it's kind of been a nerd uprising of sorts. -3. Okay, wait, can we get our very first? Yes!
Grafe has nearly 10,000 subscribers on YouTube who watch him play chess. His videos often get thousands of views. Matt Bader is just one of many of Grafe's fans, and he says the community Grafe has built is just one of the reasons he enjoys watching him stream.
He plays against, titled players just like him. And he wins. That's the really exciting thing. So he really gives hope to this school for romantic chess where we can be dramatic and bold and sacrifice things and have fun and, create chaos on the board. And it's really, really fun to watch him do his thing. That's why I watch FM William Grafe. That's why I watch his stream.
Chess is even invading the NYC nightlife. Some of the hottest clubs in New York City are chess clubs. Isabel Munter and Simone Robert are the owners of Pawn Chess. Tonight is their latest event down at Casino in the Lower East Side. It's bustling here in this small restaurant. It's dim, intimate lighting. Everyone is dressed up, sipping dirty martinis and eating french fries and playing chess. Pawn Chess is here to make chess cool and bring it to the mainstream.
Yeah, this is a totally different vibe than what the classical normal chess club is. You have marshals, you have chess forum, it's usually older guys. It's a very intimidating vibe, especially for beginners. So the whole idea was that, Simone and I want to get back into chess. We want to play with our friends in bars and restaurants where we would have drinks otherwise. So go to an intimate space where you can have a dirty martini and sit over a chessboard and just have a conversation and learn to play chess again.
Grafe is also here at the center table, playing on a rollout mat with plastic chess pieces. His opponent is not faring too well. He's managed to attract a bit of a crowd around him as he plays, watching his every move.
This is awesome. I love these events. It's just being social with the game. What do we got?
Grafe has 4 months to practice and get his skills up to scratch before he heads to Serbia, where he's hoping to win at the World Chess Boxing Championships. Flora Warshaw, Columbia Radio News.
Hannah Lorenzo was raised without a father, but once she grew up, she found someone else she could call Dad.
All I really know about my biological father is what my mom told me, that he had an affair and left us for his new family when I was just a baby, so my mom raised me on her own. I can't even imagine what that was like, making sure she could build her own career while building me up too. She's an expert at math. She's even a computer engineer for a Fortune 500 company, so she had me practicing my multiplication tables every night before bed when I was still in preschool. I wanted to succeed in figure skating, so she paid for coaching, ice time, and my bedazzled costumes, including one of my favorites that was fiery red and made me look like a phoenix. No matter what, she's always been there for me. She supported me when I ended up quitting figure skating and focusing on school. She was always a phone call away when I left Arizona for the first time to go to college in Indiana and then Connecticut. I remember the spring break before I graduated. I was screaming down the stairs to tell her that I was accepted to a master's program at Columbia University. She screamed along with me. I asked her about my father only a couple of times. My mom would just say that if he wanted to be a part of my life, he would have shown up by now. That there was really nothing stopping him from calling or even sending an email. So I learned to accept that there was no point in hoping if he would ever turn up. Besides, what would a dad have to offer that my mom didn't already? Then I met Uncle Jeff, my Aunt Charlotte's husband. It was my high school graduation. For 18 years, it was mostly just me and my mom. So when Uncle Jeff walked up the cement step to our front door, I just stood there. I felt shy. He also just stood there a bit awkwardly, with a goofy grin. But in a few seconds, he rushed up and hugged me. I vaguely remember him when I was a toddler. Back then, I was definitely intimidated by him, with his tall, strong build and tattoos. But Uncle Jeff wasn't so intimidating this time. The silver streaks running down his beard hinted at his age, and I also got to see the tattoos on his right arm more closely, especially the really cool one of a mutated octopus fighting a shark in the sea. He told me he wanted to be more a part of my life, more than just an uncle I saw every couple of years. Soon I was visiting their cramped apartment in Washington. I got to spend time with my 2 young cousins and catch up with my aunt, who's a night owl like me. Uncle Jeff and I would sit at his dining room table, and he told me about his own life, how complicated his side of the family was, stories about traveling while in the Navy, and what it was like the first time he met my aunt. He was totally mesmerized by her Filipina beauty. The more he told me about himself, the more I felt willing to open up. I grew more comfortable telling him about problems I had with body image that came from figure skating, how getting rejected by Ivy League colleges made me feel unworthy. Not to mention how inexperienced I was talking to guys, let alone dating them. I remember him just looking at me intently, not interrupting. He would lightly nod and then give me his advice. These were conversations I had with my mom. She was really the only person I had. But now I had Uncle Jeff too. I appreciated that he would validate how I feel, but remind me that I shouldn't sell myself too short, especially because he knows how much of a perfectionist I am. He would tell me that I'm strong, beautiful, worthy, and capable of achieving what I want, even when I feel like I'm not good enough, though I think he flatters me too much. So I started thinking, is this what it's like to have a father? I get excited for our weekend FaceTime chats. We could go on for hours catching up and venting about family drama. I love seeing photos he sends of my cousins having fun at the beach in Florida, or him cooking Filipino stew for my aunt. Recently, he surprised me when he sent a photo showing off a new tattoo on his left wrist, my name above one of his daughters. I'll be sending this piece over to him to listen to when it's done. I know he says I shouldn't ever feel pressured to call him Dad, but I think I'm ready to say it now. Uncle Jeff, thank you for being my dad.
You can find photos of Hannah Lorenzo with her Uncle Jeff and his cool tattoos on the Uptown Radio website. Well, that does it for this edition of Uptown Radio. We hope you enjoyed the show. Our foreman today was executive producer Hannah Lorenzo. Leading our staff of reporters was senior producer Joya Ma. Special thanks to our senior editor ZJ Young and director Madeline Riley, who coordinated our studio production with Flora Warshaw. Thanks to our newscaster Maud Yaish and our day reporter Una Milliken. Our instructors Sally Herships, Ben Shapiro, and Priscilla Alabi advised our staff. I'm your host, Hannah Weaver. Uptown Radio has been live on Thursdays at 4 and anytime at uptownradio.org. From all of us here at Uptown Radio, thanks for listening.